Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Detour podcast, where we talk all things related to the topic of unconventional success and upcomings. I'm your host, Gary Fan, a community college alumnus with aspirations of becoming a world-changing business owner. This episode marks the fourth episode within the second season of the podcast, and today I'm joined with the owner of Evergreen Ithaca, Hudson. So, Hudson, welcome to the podcast. If you want to give a brief introduction as to who you are, where you come from, and a bit about your story for the audience, that'd be beautiful.
Yeah. Hi, everyone. Thank you, Gary, for having me on. Ever since I learned about your podcast, I've been a new fan. So a little about me. I'm originally from California. I was born and raised there in Southern California. I met my now wife out there, and but she's from Ithaca.
Oh, wow.
So yeah, I've lived there my whole life. Love California, but my wife and we were able to actually buy a house, and it was just like we were crazy house poor. It was like, okay, we have a house and we go to the beach on the weekends. That's about all we can really do.
Yeah.
So like when, everything locked down in 2020, we actually were one of those crazy people that moved to the Austin area. And we lived there for a year. And then after that year, we were like, we're getting the heck out of Dodge. And then we kind of were rethinking, like, where do we want to actually be? Just kind of finding a place that really aligns with us and what we want our future to look like, and our, a place to raise a family.
Yeah.
And, I had only visited Ithaca once, maybe twice, but we came in the summertime. We were kind of just thinking about it, like, why not be here?
In the summer, it's beautiful in Ithaca, right?
I haven't been to a lot of places, but like spring, summer, fall here is like just gorgeous.
Just not the winter time.
Winter is gorgeous too. So it's funny because everyone thinks, since I'm from California, that like I'm gonna hate it here, or like, oh no, you must do horrible in the snow. It's like, I don't mind the snow at all.
It's nice, right?
Yeah,
it's nice.
Like my dogs love it. My dogs, go out and just play in the snow and stuff. It's like I have no, you have to have the winter to have the beauty of spring, summer, and fall. So
yeah,
I love it.
That's beautiful. Like, I can completely understand. I think a lot of people think about me coming from California and being here, and they're all like, oh, you must hate the snow too, but it's so beautiful and like pretty just seeing like all the white snow and all the fluff and stuff too. So yeah. But I guess moving more towards your backstory and kind of setting up Evergreen Ithaca. So if you don't mind telling a bit more about how you really got started with Evergreen Ithaca, has this always been a dream of yours, or was there kind of like a build up and transitioning into Evergreen Ithaca?
So pretty much ever since I was 18, I'm 28 now, which sounds crazy old when you say it out loud. But when I was 18, I got into CrossFit heavy. So I'm the type of person that, like, once I get interested in something, I don't think about anything else. And I was a full-time head coach at a gym in San Diego. I had a YouTube channel. I was posting content. I had my meme page I was telling you about. I was programming for the gym that I was coaching at. So it was like literally Sunday to Sunday I was doing fitness-related content. And that's just what my life encompassed. And then kind of like when everything slowed down during the lockdown, I was kind of just being more mindful of like things that I used to care about, because growing up I used to care a lot about animals and stuff. So I started to get more about understanding sustainability in our environments and different things like that. And so then it kind of just went down that rabbit hole, and now there's nothing that I don't do in my life that's, I contemplate, my carbon footprint. I think about how I can be sustainable in my efforts and all those different things. And so I kind of just like one day my wife was telling me about people selling used clothes online, and I was like, what? And I'd never been a fashionable person by any means. Like, I always have a person throw on a shirt, some gym shorts, and I'm good to go.
Now you're really fashionable.
Well, okay, some cargo's in a shirt. It's very basic, but it does it for me.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was like I'd always round two.
Yes. Yeah, I know. Yeah.
So like, even though I was never into fashion or into sneakers or anything, like I'd watch them from the very beginning when they started in Virginia. Wow. And like I was just always fascinated by it. And I thought it was cool and creative, and I've always been very creative. I've always been really into like things that are different and take a lot of thought. And it's like I've never wanted to like mimic anything. I've never if you're wearing the same shoes everyone else has, I don't think that's that cool. It's like I like someone that wears shoes that you don't see, or they create their own outfit that no one else is gonna rock.
Yeah.
So I'd always been curious about fashion and stuff. So once my wife and I were kind of hearing about people selling secondhand clothes, I started going to the thrift stores, and
Okay.
I pretty much I was buying stuff. I was learning how to sell online, and just every bit of money I was making off that, I was just putting back into buying more clothes.
Yeah.
With the whole mindset of you walk into pretty much any thrift store in the country and they're just packed with clothes.
Yeah. That's awesome. Like I really want to touch more on like buying clothes first, and then did you kind of flip clothes? Is that how it all started?
That's how it all started. Yeah, I mean I have I think around 400, 500 articles of clothing in the store right now.
Wow.
And this is like this is a fraction of what I have in storage units and stuff.
Yeah.
Just because my whole thought process was making the money off of flipping it as quickly as possible, and then reinvesting it by buying more clothes as quickly as possible. So some people like to go and they like to hunt for clothes, and they want to pull that banger band tee that's worth $500, and they want to go flex it on Instagram. I don't care about that. I hate finding super expensive stuff, because it's I don't want to be in that realm of kind of snooty. It's okay, this one shirt from the 90s is worth $20. This one shirt from the 90s is worth several $100s. I understand the nostalgia behind it, and they're rare and all that type of stuff. But for me, it's just my whole goal was volume. My whole goal was, how can I turn my dollar into $2 by just getting this sold at the most reasonable price, where then I can reinvest it. I'm not trying to turn $1 into $100. It's I'll turn $1 into $2 and just keep that compounding. And in less than 2 years, I sold 3,500 articles of clothing online.
Wow. Congrats on that. Yeah, that's huge.
Yeah, I've always been a big numbers guy, so it's I love accounting. I love doing all that type of stuff.
Oh man, I like accounting too, but I feel like that's an unpopular opinion to like accounting. So.
Well, the only subject I was ever good in school was math.
Oh,
so
really?
It's I took.
Oh, wow.
I had an A- in pre-cal. In high school and stuff.
Okay.
Yeah, it was second nature to me. But everything else,
Yeah.
Coasted. I coasted for sure.
There's one really interesting thing about thrifting that I've always been fascinated about. I feel like a lot of people understand at the face value what thrifting is. It's you kind of buy used clothes and resell it at some point, and more people it's recycling clothes in a way. But I feel like not a lot of people understand what goes on in the back end of what you do to actually buy these clothes. Where do you buy these clothes? Do you just go to a local Goodwill, or what is the process of collecting enormous amount of articles of clothing you have, and kind of reselling that to the average consumer?
Well, I mean, I probably without giving away my secret recipe, it's all about connections and networking. People know what I do, so therefore things end up I wake up and I get a call or a text, and things end up working out where all of a sudden I'm able to take on clothing. But it's never I just go to the thrift store every single day and I just grab, I'm just grabbing bags and bags of clothes. It's I go to thrift stores periodically. I don't hit the one up here too often, because since this is such a densely populated area, I do want people to go there and still have the fun of searching for clothes at a really great price and stuff like that. And even if I find something that I know I could resell, if it's at a price point where it's okay, I might make a $5 flip on it for what I would want to sell it for, I'll leave it and I'll let someone else get it for
Wow.
a little bit cheaper price than I would sell it for. So I mean, it's I very much have my own aesthetic that I look for. I look for quality materials. But I mean, there's clothes everywhere, not just in thrift stores. So if you think about it and just let people know, if you're trying to look for clothing, I'm sure everyone's grandma has a closet full of clothes that's been there forever, or an attic or a basement or things like that. So just ask around. Maybe someone's got clothes for you.
Yeah, no, that's super interesting. I think a lot of my pieces that I used to wear in high school actually came from my dad's closet. So
that's cool.
I think it's really cool that you know, you look in like your family's like attic or basement and stuff like that. I feel like a lot of people overlook like doing that and kind of just buy retail or from like other like online places. So
Yeah, I mean, let your neighborhood, you know, you live in a neighborhood, let
Yeah.
everyone in your neighborhood know, hey, do you have any stuff? I'll go donate it to the thrift store, or I'll
yeah.
go take it to somewhere, and then, you know, you rummage through it. There's a couple of things you like, cool.
Yeah.
There's been plenty of times people bring me bags of clothes, like, oh yeah, I have so many clothes, and you know, there's like 70, so I'm like, oh, there's gonna be some good stuff in here, and it's like nothing but like J. Crew button-ups and stuff, and I'm like, all right, you know, I don't really care for these, but yeah, I mean, just, you know, everyone's got a closet full of clothes, and if not more than that, so.
Yeah, no, that's super cool. And one other thing that I found really interesting about your story particularly is you care a lot about like the environment and sustainability. And I feel like I'm currently working on a project that deals with like sustainable fashion as well. Can definitely talk more about that off camera, but I feel like a lot of fashion also contradicts the idea of sustainability. So how would you find this like niche of caring about sustainability and also fashion at the same time?
Well, so I think what makes me a little bit different in the aspect of how I run things is like, if I don't know if you've noticed, but nowhere on our website or on Google or anything does it say that we're a vintage store, because I don't care what era it's from. You know, I have like World War II bomber jackets that I could sell for several $100s online for a much better price here on this rack. But it's like, you know, I just want to, it's a quality item. I know it's going to last, and I want to get up to somebody. And if someone buys this jacket, I know they're not going to donate it next week. I know they're not going to donate it next year, because they understand that I am the second or third or fourth person to now own this item, and people understand the value of it. Whereas before, people were just, you know, going, you know, people all the time find Gucci and Prada in the thrift stores, not all the time, but you know, it's out there too, because people are just like literally don't even think of clothes like that. They think of it's like a used good, and it's no longer good after the fact. It's not like, you know, no one gets a car and then chucks it, you know, when they want to get a second car, the car still keeps value. So I am very much in the mindset of like, you know, anything you own, especially clothing, will still keep its value, even if it has a small hole, even if it has a small stain, even if it was made last year. Like, there's some pieces in here that, you know, I'm sure were made within the past 5 years, but they're still cool. They're still quality items or whatever it is. So yeah, I mean, and that's also why I try to price everything as affordably as possible relative to how hard it is to get. Like, for example, Ithaca college stuff, there is just not a lot out there. No matter no matter how many different ways I try to search for it and hunt it down, there's not a lot. So it's, you know, I have to price those items a little bit more to make it worth my time and effort to get those items for people. But you know, I try to price it to where it's not dirt cheap. But I also try to price it where it's not too expensive, so people understand the value of it. You know, it's like if you were to give someone, you know, a Lamborghini, they might be like, oh, you know, crap, and then they're whipping it around, they're having a great time. But if you're someone that worked 10 years to be able to afford a Lamborghini, you're gonna be waxing that thing every other day, and it's gonna be garage kept, and you're gonna be, you know, double parking and stuff or whatever. So I just want to make sure people understand the value of it, and you know, I try to keep the prices according to that still make it very affordable. And if you buy something from here, it's going to last you a long time. Nothing here is flimsy or, you know, poorly made.
It's quality. Just like looking through all your articles of clothing you have here, quality is all like the common denominator behind all you have here. So
yeah, because I mean, like,
really cool.
You know, the rack of jeans, like some of those jeans are from the 90s, and they're still here in, you know, the 20s, the 2020s. So it's like, I want people to buy something from here and to have until 2050, until it doesn't fit them, or they, you know, are moving or whatever it is. Like, all these things here, you know, you could rock for the next several decades like people do now. But if you buy from most brands nowadays, they're not going to last that long. So.
So like that's really interesting, because I feel like in doing some research on my end of like how people shop, like especially for retail, there's like some number of people that actually buy like an immense amount of clothes, and then they maybe wear it, I think it's around 13 times before they throw it out and never wear it again. So what do you think about like fast fashion and how that's like changing the world nowadays? And given your perspective, is this like something that people in fashion or interested in fashion should kind of take on and be more conscious when purchasing like a piece of clothing?
Well, I mean, for people being conscious, 100%.
Yeah.
You know, I think if like brands like Fashion Nova and all those brands, like, they don't have resale value. Like, those items sit on like Mercari and Depop for like $2 and no one's buying them because it's just crap stuff that someone bought for they saw a model wearing it in the photo. And I can't remember if I've read somewhere that like the clothing they wear for the shoots aren't even the same quality of the clothing that actually gets made and delivered to people. It's like like you go to you see a Carl's Jr. ad and it's like a beautiful perfectly stacked burger and you get it and it looks like crap. I think that's like what happens within those types of fast fashion brands. But yeah, I mean, you get what you pay for. So if you're gonna do a $500 Fashion Nova haul and get a whole new wardrobe for a season, it's like, well, there's a reason why you're able to get so much for so cheap. It's crap. There's a reason why fast food's so much cheaper than quality food, because it's not as good for you. It's not as nutrient. It's not as beneficial. So yeah, I think people definitely be conscious, and I feel like we are at, like, I'm not gonna say like fast fashion is gonna die next year, but I definitely think we're at like a plateau or like a tipping point in the sense of like, I think it's just because maybe there's two sides that I'm not quite sure of. I don't know if sustainability and like people being aware of the environment and stuff like that really picked up during lockdown, or if it more so was just for me because that's really when I started to become aware. But it seems like I feel like talk about climate change and different things like weren't happening even like 5 years ago. Like if you were talking about climate change, it's like you were a crazy wacko person or whatever, and you got people just like judge you. But now it's like common knowledge and like there's no denying it. So
I find that really interesting because I actually got into sustainable fashion when like the lockdown hit too. That's when I like started to realize that like the industry itself, like there wasn't one specific brand that was doing like sustainable or ethical fashion like 100%. And I tried to start like my own little fashion brand that was 100% sustainable and ethical. But I like quickly realized it takes a lot of money, and I come from like low income too, so I like scratched the idea. But like the idea of like conscious fashion and shopping more sustainably and ethically always stuck through. So I really resonate with you and like I guess the sustainable fashion coming out from lockdown. So it's really cool.
But one thing I want to like cap on that is it's a two-way street. You know what I mean? In the sense of these companies are making crap products and they're just pushing them out and all this type of stuff, but people are buying them. So I think it's very much like we can't just go and point our fingers at companies and be like, you need to be more sustainable and make better products. More so kind of what you were saying, it's like be understanding of how much you are buying. Of like if you're going to buy something, it should be an essential piece you can wear all the time. Not like, okay, I'm going to buy this one dress for this one thing and I'm never going to wear it again. Buy it, like spend more time searching for a dress you're really going to like that can be very universal, or a dress that is higher quality that you could resell or give to a friend to borrow, or all these different things. I think that's I've heard people do like clothes exchanges or trades, wherever they bring all the clothes they don't want anymore and they'll bring them with their friends and exchange. Like that's a great idea, and don't be afraid to pay up for quality.
So like I guess my question I'm even trying to understand nowadays is how do we get these consumers to think in a more conscious way? Do we have to like put out like ads that kind of paint clothing in a more like beautiful way that makes them really cherish the value of like a piece of clothing, or like do they need to read tons of articles? This might be like I don't even have the answer to this question, and I'm not sure if you do, but just curious to see your thoughts as to how can we maybe change like the perspective of like users or consumers out there that buy these clothing brands.
I actually just started reading a book. I can't remember the name of the author, but the book is called Influence is Your Superpower. And the whole point of the book is kind of just getting people to hear you out, kind of like having like kind of like that not managerial type demeanor, but like being like a leader in the sense of like getting people to understand you, and getting people to hear you, and getting people to take actionable steps towards what you are saying in a non-manipulative way. But even though I'm not very far in the book, one of the main things it harps on is like people have like a gator side of their brain and they have a judge side of their brain. And the gator side is the side of minimal effort, minimal work. I don't because like if the example they gave in the book was you throw a piece of meat to the gator, and if it's a little bit too far, they're not going to run to it and eat it because they don't need to eat. But if it's like, within their bite radius, that's when they chomp down on it. So it's like very reactive, very subconscious. You don't have to think about it. Just skating by, just surviving. Where the judge brain is more so like, okay, it's a very, you have to sit down and ponder and think about what action you want to take. It's, deciding what college you want to go to, deciding what you want to put your money towards and things like that. And like the way you get people to kind of use their gator brain to make, or, to kind of, I'm butchering the book. Everyone should read the book. Influence is Your Superpower. It's a great book so far.
Yeah.
But the point I'm getting to is that in order to get someone to try something new, to hear your side or whatever it is, to break their habits and not just like brush it off to the side, is make it as easy as possible.
Gotcha.
And so I think what that comes down to, I don't think it's necessarily like being activists and like shoving down people's throats and stuff like that. I think it's more so like having a storefront, getting people to come and see what a secondhand store or a vintage store might look like, making it more accessible. And I think that, if you go to a thrift store, you might search for 30 minutes and find, nothing that's in your size, nothing that you like, nothing that, you found one thing but it has a big stain on it or has a big hole in it and stuff like that, and you might not get it. So I wanted to make it as easily accessible for people to find, cool quality pieces, and just lower that barrier to entry to get in. If people have to go to the thrift store to search for stuff, it's a little more consuming for them, and they might have to go repetitively to find that thing that they're looking for. They want to find a nice jacket for the winter. They want to find some shorts for the summertime and stuff like that. So, I think just showing people very easily, the quality pieces. Every now and then bringing it up, maybe in like group conversations and stuff. Yeah. But I don't think it's definitely not like, trying to hammer it on anybody. It's just very much like let it happen, and I think it'll grow from there.
Making it easy for the consumer. Yeah, that's a good point. Didn't really think about that, but what was the book called one more time for my own personal reading too?
Influence is Your Superpower. So I just within the past couple of years, I started getting into books, and it's funny because I used to be that type of person. I'd be like, okay, there's all these self-help books and these certain books you got to read.
Yeah.
And I would just hate them, and I wouldn't be able to get past a few pages. I had to reread every single page and stuff. But there's certain books that, like, if they spark my interest, I can, like, devour them. And this is definitely one of those books. Super easy, super interesting. I highly recommend it.
Gotcha. I've started getting back into, like, my reading phase, so I'm going to add that one to the list, too.
It's a great book.
But, yeah, I know we've talked a lot about, like, the sustainability aspect of clothing and kind of how you got into it. But I really want to switch gears into talking about how you really led or really started this storefront here. Like, how is that process like? And also, where did the name Evergreen Ithaca come from? Is it because of your love for, like, evergreen, like, trees, or, like, what was the thought process behind that?
Well, so I needed to change the name of my business because before it was called Functional, but it was spelled with a V instead of a U.
Okay. Which
was like, it was pretty funny. It was pretty cringe. Like, I don't, funny, I hated the name. Some people would, like, look at it kind of funny and, like, even though I thought, like, when I made it, like, oh, this is, slick, and the thought process behind that was like, oh, it's functional. Even though it's used, even though it's battered, even though it's not, pristine, brand new, it's still functional. It still does its purpose. But then I was like, I need to change the name. At that point, I was here, and, like, I'm not going anywhere. I'm living here for the foreseeable future.
Yeah.
So I was like, something to do with green, something to do with nature, something to do with outside the environment. And I just, thought of Evergreen. I tried to do just Evergreen, but that didn't work.
Did someone else have, like, Evergreen? Or?
There's, like, I think there's, like, some company in the state that has that name or some aspect of that name that I couldn't use. It was, like, Evergreen Ithaca, and it was available, and I was like, perfect. And I think it's great because it's not like... So everything that I do with this business as well, I try to think outside the box. Try to think what can be different, what can be creative. I didn't want to call this place a vintage store, so I called it Evergreen Ithaca, whereas most stores, they call themselves, blank vintage, which nothing's wrong with that, because I think it makes it easy for people to find you, and it makes it more accessible for people to get their hands on secondhand clothing. But I just wanted to make something that was kind of like cool, and it's like its own brand, like its own thing, and it also ties into Ithaca. You know, it's I love this place. I want to represent this place. So
Yeah, that's really cool. Like, do you see yourself growing Evergreen Ithaca into more states in the foreseeable future?
No, but going back, I mean, I will cover that. But going back to what you were saying about starting this business, it was like, you know, me just trying to, every single piece of article that I sold, I would see how much profit I made, invest that money back into the business, acquire a huge amount of clothing, and I was doing local pop-ups. So when I spent my year in Austin is when I started doing pop-ups, and I was doing them like once a month, maybe twice a month, in the freaking blazing hot heat, like 105 degrees. You'd set up your booth and you'd be dripping sweat, you had to change your whole outfit, and it was not fun. But yeah, I started doing that, meeting people, building connections, building a following and stuff. I moved here, I started doing that, did the Ithaca Night Bazaar this past summer, which is pretty fun. It's a cool spot. I highly recommend people that are local to check it out. Lots of local vendors, shop small, shop local. And I just kind of just built enough of a following to where I was like, okay, if I am able to afford a space, like I need to open a space because there's definitely a demand for it. I'm seeing these people that are buying from me multiple times at just pop-ups alone.
Yeah.
So, yeah, this Mama Goose, I heard at the grapevine they had this space and they were trying to sublease it, and I was able to, you know, reach out to them and work out a deal. And, you know, it's a tight space, but we're making it work. And, yeah, I'm grateful for them for letting me be here. And it's just something that, you know, I just save my pennies, save my nickels. Like, I've become very, very frugal within the past, like, couple of years.
Yeah.
I try to spend as little money as possible. If I ever have an urge to buy something, I always sit on it for like a week at least to make sure that, you know, do I really need it? Do I really want it? And half the time I forget what I was thinking about, you know?
Yeah, that's a good point.
So, yeah, I mean, just really trying to save my pennies, save my nickels, you know, wait for the time to come, and it happened.
Yeah, no, so how did you figure out that there's like a real demand? Did you just see a lot of local people like continuously come up to you during like these pop-ups? And also the second part of that question is, when you found, I guess, Mama Goose, I know they're also a thrift store, is that?
So they're a secondhand store catered around infants and like young children and stuff.
Yeah.
And they have like everything kid, like everything baby, like all the type of stuff you need. They do like reusable diapers. They do like, I think they're like a breast milk like drop off station and stuff. I have lots of respect for the Mama Goose and all the employees. You know, I think that's a great business model.
Yeah. So this whole space here is also like, I guess, a secondhand like space, right? Like, or is that what this whole entire property is?
No, not the whole property. It's just us two businesses.
Okay.
Yeah, but I mean, it made sense. Like, you know.
Yeah, it does. Yeah.
Because she said there was another business. She was like, yeah, I didn't know if I really wanted them there, but then you inquired, and I was like, oh, you know, makes sense. Why not?
Yeah. So, how did you really know that there's like a real demand to open up a store? Just like curiosity, because maybe some of the viewers out there are thinking about opening their own storefront for whatever business that they're trying to start. Mm-hmm. When is that right time to, I guess, jump the gun on buying a storefront for the actual business?
Well, when you say that, one thing that I really think about a lot is having the lowest barrier to entry when starting your business that will make you money. So, for example, I started selling clothes online, and I had that revenue source to where I could go and open up a store, and I could still have my online store at the same time. So worst case scenario, this is like just barely breaking even, maybe losing a little money. I'm still making money through my other means, which doesn't cost me anything to run that store, because I just, you know, they take their fees, whatever, after the fact of the sale. Mm-hmm. But it's like, you know, I can continue to make money that way while growing this. And now I'm to the point where this is just really the main thing that I focus on, and I don't really do any online sales.
Yeah.
So whatever it might be, if you're trying to do, you know, you make handmade something, you're an artist, you are, you know, you starting a small business, what can you do that will make you money with the without you having to spend any money, really, if you can do that, or the least amount of money possible. And I think the biggest thing is, like, one thing that I harp on so much, and I think it's been one of my biggest successors, is the fact that I always try to think outside the box. When another great book, I forgot what it's literally called, but it's like zig when they zag or something like that. But even just the title of that book is pretty much all you need to know about the book.
Yeah.
It's like so for example, everyone says, go on TikTok, make TikToks, make reels, do reels. And that might help people gain a general, following. But it's like, okay, you have to compete with everyone else now trying to do that same thing because that's what everyone's being told to do. So it's like, not to say don't post on TikTok or IG Reels or something. Do that if that's what you think will help you grow your business to gain attraction. But like, what can you do that's different? Like, can you pop up at a local store that's going to allow you just to have a little corner, a little table, and sell your artwork, or sell, you make pottery, or you make, candles, something like that.
Yeah.
Especially if you're cool with the owners, you're cool with the property manager, whatever, and they allow you to do it for free. A free way if you then start making some money. So it's like, always just think differently. If you do something different, people are going to notice because it's different. But if you're just another TikTok, people are just scrolling past. They might catch your attention, they might not. But then you're also a part of that just like constant grind of having to pump out content. And like every day is a little bit different, which I love. I wish I had a little bit more of a routine. But like, I've been in the content game and I've done it for so long. It's like, I'm glad now I can kind of just go at my own pace and I hated the fact that I used to feel pressure to have to post. It's like, I gotta get a post up today, or I should do 2 today, or last week I did this and it was so successful, I gotta think of something that's similar to that. It's like, do things at your own pace. I don't post every day. I don't make reels. I've tried reels and I made a couple and I was like, whatever. But just like, what's like, everything that gains popularity started from nothing, of just someone trying something different. And that's really, and then all of a sudden someone else does it and someone else does it. So
that's a really interesting take on it. And a lot of like your expertise in social media when you started your CrossFit channel too probably taught you a lot as well. And I'm really curious to understand, since I'm also trying to grow my podcast too, and a lot of what I do is trying to do like the TikToks, the reels, the shorts. So how do you really refine content so that you're not like, I guess, pressured to post every single day? And what lessons did you learn from, I guess, starting that CrossFit channel and getting an immense amount of following to, I guess, handling the social media presence of Evergreen Ithaca?
It's definitely different. I think it's taught me like general principles. When it came to YouTube for Constantly Right Fitness, which was the name of my YouTube channel, it was, what really helped me grow and gain traction was, one, CrossFit was new. So it's really like, there was not a lot of people doing CrossFit related content at the time when I started. So therefore it was easy to kind of grow because it was different. But one thing I've really noticed when it comes to longer format content, whether that be on YouTube or anywhere else, as long as it's not like 30 seconds, like, boom, bam, like trying to get your attention like a TikTok does, if it's something where people actually like listen to and, digest, is making evergreen content, no pun intended, in the sense of like stuff that just doesn't, it stands the test of time. Like one of my videos that I used to make videos on like 5 mobility drills for like an overhead squat, for example. And it's like something that people that get into CrossFit are always going to look into, because the overhead squat is a very challenging movement to do, requires coordination, requires mobility, requires patience to master and stuff. So it's like something that will always gain views because people are always looking up for that thing. And then I made another video, which was like the only one of its time that became one of my most successful videos, like within a year, and gained like 500,000 views, was 5 things I learned, or 5, what was it? It was like 5 things I wish I knew when I started CrossFit. And it's like, one, people love lists, people love numbers, top 5, whatever it is. People want to know if they're going to start CrossFit, what should they be thinking about? So like that's another piece of evergreen style content that's always going to be relevant. And so when it comes to me posting, because only social media I have now is Evergreen Ithaca Instagram. So if I were to make like, I contemplated like, once this kind of gets going, maybe I have an employee or two to like venture into more content, because I really do enjoy making content. But it's like, as I hope you've seen with my Instagram, it's like, it's never the same type of photo.
Yeah.
It's not just an item sitting on a hanger, just the one item perfectly framed, and then the next post the same thing, the next post the same thing.
It's beautiful. You have a really aesthetic like feed, and I really like
you.
watching it.
Yeah. And that's the thing. Like every single post, I try to outdo myself. And some posts I like more than others. Some I look back at, I'm like, oh, I would have done this differently or that differently. But it's trying to be different, catch people's attention.
That's really interesting that you mentioned every post you try to outdo yourself. I'm not sure. Have you watched the podcast with Mr. Beast by any chance?
Which
he I think he talked about like posting on social media, and every post that he tries to make, he tries to add like 10% more of what the like prior post had in terms of like effort and quality. And he thinks like that's like the real I guess recipe of like making a really good, I guess, content page. So I think you didn't even I don't know if you knew that, but I think you already subconsciously started doing like the 10% rule and kind of outdoing yourself with like every single post you had, right?
Well, like, think about like, artists, like music, like, like people that make music. It's like if they kind of make the same thing over and over, they're not really going to grow. They might have the same hardcore base they have, but it's like, for example, Tyler, the Creator, I remember listening to a podcast with him, and he was like, every single one of his, in his discography or whatever it's called, is like so different from the last. And I think that's what helps him stay relevant. That's what helped him grow. It's what helped him be successful in business and stuff like that. Whereas if you're someone that's just pumping out the same thing, you sound monotone. Like, for example, what came to my mind instantly was Wiz Khalifa. He's just so, like, all he raps about is weed and smoking weed. And it's like, cool. But it's like, there's nothing else that he talks about. So it's kind of just, kind of fades out into the background because it's the same thing. So yeah, I mean, that also allows me to not have to post every day, I feel.
Yeah.
Because when I do post, people know it's going to be something different. It's going to be something, hopefully it catches their
banger.
attention.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the whole thought process is like, if I'm going to post, I want people to actually look and not just be like, another one, just swipe right past it.
Yeah.
So
that's really interesting how you kind of have this like, or have these creative inspirations, not just within your realm of like fashion, and you have it within like artists and any different forms of like creativity. I think that's something I never really thought about when thinking about like creating content, especially like for my podcast too. I kind of look into the realm of, who are the very successful podcasts like out there?
No.
I think you bring up a really interesting perspective. So like, who are those inspirations to you and like the creative industry that you kind of draw these attributes from?
Well, I mean, like, so pretty much all my day revolves around is, finding used clothes, plants, and music, and podcasts. But like, so for example, one of my favorite artists is Frank Ocean, just because the way he is able to, each song is so different from the last. Like, people think like Kanye West is a god and makes the greatest music, and his music is great too.
Yeah.
But it's like people that like Frank Ocean, people like Tyler the Creator, people like I'm trying to think about other people that I really like. People that really just push the envelope, and it's like not the same. Like I have the utmost respect for people that walk outside and like they have an outfit on that you will never see again. It's like, and it doesn't need to be like designer or like super fancy and gaudy, but it's like people that truly are creative and they go to the own beat of their own drum is what catches my attention in anything in life. Like, it could be the way someone designed their garden. Like someone can have a really basic garden, someone can have a beautiful garden. They spend a lot of time, and effort and thought process and planning and stuff like that. So I just have a respect for, creativity, uniqueness, things that catch my attention, things that are different. So.
Yeah. I think I got to take some lessons from you and stealing inspiration from not just people from like the podcasting space, but just people everywhere that kind of inspire you with like creativity, like outside of your normal industry. Right?
Yeah, in life.
Yeah, in life. That's awesome. I guess one fun question I have for you is, what is like the scrappiest thing that you run? Because you run Evergreen Ithaca by yourself. Is that correct? So what's the most scrappiest thing that you've done as a business owner running Evergreen Ithaca?
Like just the most like kind of just down to business
Yeah,
type of.
yeah.
Well, I guess one thing is like there's this one individual that I know, that's in her 80s, and she has a barn, and this barn's probably like 50 feet wide, 150 feet long, and she has boxes and boxes full of clothes.
Oh, wow.
She had, I'll air it out. She had knew this thrift store that would just let her just take everything because they were getting stuff coming in, so they want to get rid of the old stuff and say, hey, you haul it and it's all yours. And she just for years and years would throw stuff in the barn, and now it's covered in animal feces. You have to wear like an N95 minimum, if not a gas mask, when you're in there, because otherwise you're gonna be hailing in so much junk and stuff. But like gloves, sweatshirt, make sure none of your skin's exposed. But and then I was able to get a ton of stuff from there, but it got to the point where it was like, okay, it's not even worth the effort at this point. Like how much I have to dig and climb over stuff, and
oh god,
it was just like literally. I can show you a photo afterwards, like just
Oh yeah, I'd love to see a photo.
Yeah, there's
afterwards.
like boxes like 30 feet tall of like clothes, kind of falling over the place and stuff. It was definitely the grossest. It might have taken a year or two off my life just being in that space, but it allowed me to get a lot of great stuff, but the funny thing is she would still charge like an arm and a leg. It wasn't like, take what you want, everything's a quarter or something like that. It's like, jeans are $8. And I'm like, I got to wash these things like 7 times just to get the smell out, let alone me having to go and, dolphin dive into a pile of clothes to find it and stuff.
Yeah.
She was definitely not, definitely didn't hook it up. But yeah, that's probably one of the craziest things.
Yeah, no, that's super funny. But one last thing before we get into the rapid round of the podcast, before we close it out. But do you have any advice or tips that you have for anyone out there that's trying to open up their storefront, or anyone that's trying to chase their dreams?
So kind of like I was saying, figure out what you can do with the least amount of money spent. If you're trying to start making content, you don't need a light, you don't need a camera, you don't need a perfect backdrop, you don't need to spend money on doing a haul or something like that. It's like, find the cheapest way you can do things, ask around, go on Facebook groups and say, hey, I'm looking for art supplies, I'm looking for used fabric, I'm looking for whatever you want, whatever your endeavors are. But if it's something that's more like manufactured, like you have to buy things, save your pennies, save your nickels. I mean, that's really all, depending on wherever you are in your life situation, you can only, it depends on how bad you want it. Yeah. If it's like something like, I want to start a business, but then you're like, oh, woe is me, I can't because X, Y, or Z. It's like, okay, well then it's not going to happen. So, if you're really about it, take one step towards it every day. One step seems small if there's 1,000 steps you got to take. But then now you only got 999. You got 998. And if that sounds like a lot to you, then I guess you don't really care about starting a business. I guess it's not really a passion of yours. So.
Yeah, that's beautiful. Wow. What a way to kind of close it out. But before we close it out, rapid round, if you aren't familiar, it's kind of like a this or that type question. Okay. So we got 10 questions for you. 10. So I purposely didn't put it into the script because it's more of a surprise, but we'll start off kind of easy at first. So first question is, Nike or Adidas?
Neither if I have to, otherwise Adidas, because always the underdog.
Okay.
Yeah, Nike's more, I feel like Nike's bigger and more trendy and stuff, so if I had to, it'd be Adidas.
Fair. Okay, next one is plaid or stripes?
Stripes.
Do you have a lot of stripe clothing, or?
I have I have a couple striped things, like a couple striped knitted sweaters. I have this rain coat that's like rainbow colored stripes, but it really, I love it. I just got it recently. It's pretty sick.
That's dope. Okay, next one is plain or graphic tees?
Graphic tees.
Okay. Oversized fits or regular fits?
Well, most of the stuff I wear is oversized because nothing ever fits me, so oversized fits.
Okay, nice. Sneakers or sandals?
Sneakers.
These seem hard for you.
It's like I'm trying to think like, thanks, it depends on the season.
Yeah.
But,
Okay, cool. Neutral tones or more colorful tones?
neutral tones.
Okay. Online shopping or going to the mall? Or like a
Are malls
storefront?
even a thing?
Maybe like a storefront. We'll say going to a storefront.
I say going to a storefront. Shop local.
Okay, sweet. Gold jewelry or silver jewelry?
Silver jewelry.
Okay. Simple or statement pieces?
Statement pieces.
Okay, and last one, thrifting or retail?
I mean, retail? No. Used, secondhand.
Awesome. Well, that's a great way to close out the podcast, but thank you so much again, Hudson, for joining us today on the podcast. If anything within this podcast or episode resonated with you in any way, feel free to tag Detour Podcast across all these social media platforms. And if you'd like to follow Hudson on his journey, Hudson, what's your @ for Evergreen Ithaca?
Evergreen Ithaca.
Awesome. Well, thank you again to everyone for your continuous love and support. I'm your host, Gary Fan, and we'll see you guys next time. Peace.